Hello, everyone. Welcome to Million Marker Live. Happy New Year. For anyone who don't know me, my name is Jenna. I am the founder and CEO of Million Marker, and we are a company that dedicated to helping people make healthier choices that will help them reduce eliminating their exposures from BPA, phthalates, parabens, and other hormone-disrupting chemicals. And our thyroid hormone is actually quite important and is impacted by hormone balance that could be caused by these toxic chemicals. And this month is a thyroid awareness month, and over 20 million people actually have a thyroid disorder. And over 60% of these people actually unaware of their condition. So this is why we're really excited to have our guest today, Dr. Paria Vaziri with us today. So let me see if she's here to invite her to join. Oh, here she is. Hi,
I'm
Dr.
here.
Paria.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good, good. Thank you so much for joining. I just gave
Sure.
like a super
Thank you
brief
so much.
introduction. Um, so
Awesome.
glad you're joining us. Now we can actually get started.
Yes, yes.
This is awesome. So you're like a licensed naturopath doctor who specializes in hormones. And could you tell our viewers a bit about your own experiences and what led you to a career to practice medicine?
Yeah, absolutely. So my experience is all over the place. And I'm sure so many people that go down the path of like natural
Yeah.
healing have similar stories. But basically, when I was an undergrad, I was studying biology and I had originally intended to go into pharmacy school. So, as you can imagine, totally different than what I'm doing now. But I was on that route. And then I remember my final year of being in school, like everything that could possibly go wrong with my health, I felt like went wrong. Like I had major gut issues. I had these chronic sinus infections because I now realize I was living in a multi apartment. I'd come off of birth control and my hormones were just all over the place. And I had really bad anxiety. So it was just like one thing on top of the other. And so I, of course, was going to a lot of doctors, wasn't getting any answers. And I was just really frustrated because I feel like I was just given a lot of prescriptions that weren't really doing anything and often made me feel worse. So then I took a gap year because my health was a mess and I needed some time to like heal myself before I could go into pharmacy school. But then during that year, I was working at a pharmacy. And at the same time, I was completely drifting away from taking medications myself. I was really focusing in on my lifestyle because I had no guidance and I didn't really know where to start with healing. So I was, focusing in on my diet, working out, just stress management techniques at home, like journaling and contrast showers and all sorts of things. And I found a lot of benefit from just natural healing and just changing up my lifestyle. And that was kind of like that aha moment for me where I was like, okay, I'm on this path career wise, but like the way that I healed my body is like the complete opposite direction. So let me reshift and figure out something that feels aligned with me and how I healed myself, but it's still within like healthcare because that's where my interest has always been.
This is so cool. You know, when people hear about like a naturopath doctor, they might not understand the difference between like, a traditional, like a common medical doctor. Could you talk about the difference?
Yeah, absolutely. So medical doctors have an MD degree. There's also DOs as well. And so they, go to the schooling, they do residency, come out of school, working either like in hospital settings, private offices, whatever it may be. But really, from my experience, I've noticed that there's not much time spent with a regular medical doctor, DO, unless you're practicing functional medicine. It's a quicker appointment that you have. Oftentimes, it's more of like you come in with your symptoms and you get a prescription as the resolution. Not very often, from my experience or the experience of people I've spoken to, are they really getting into the nitty gritty of what's causing the imbalance or like addressing lifestyle changes or anything like that. So that's where a naturopathic doctor is different, where we, take a step back. We spend a lot of time, on one-on-one appointments. Like I spend about an hour with every appointment with patients, and we really dig deep to find out what is the root cause, like what's driving the imbalance, as opposed to, oh, you have this symptom, let's just manage it with this medication. With that said, though, of course, both have their time and place. MDs serve a really important role in our healthcare system, and I do believe NDs also serve a really important role. And we see this more so, I would say, like within the scope of like chronic care versus acute conditions. Like if you had a broken arm, don't come to me. That's
Yes.
not what I'm. I can't help you with that. I'm not the person for you. If you need a surgery, that's not for me. Like, you know. But if you have a chronic imbalance, like hormonal imbalances, gut issues, that's where I think, going to a naturopathic doctor is beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. It's this holistic approach is much more comprehensive than, just like treating something and then something else broke,
Yeah.
which is like happens so often.
Yeah.
And then also leaves people like almost like hopeless sometimes with other conditions that would come about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So like I mentioned a little bit earlier, like this month is like thyroid awareness month. And then we know that up to like 12% of people develop thyroid conditions during their lifetime.
Mhm.
But, what is the thyroid gland? What does it do?
Yeah, of course. So our thyroid gland is like a butterfly-shaped gland. It's right around here, sits on our neck, on top of our trachea, wraps around it. And so this gland serves a very, very important role in our body because you can really think of it kind of like the thermostat of our body. It's setting the rate of our metabolism. So metabolism includes how we're intaking our nutrients and using it for energy that then in turn, our body and different organ systems are using to keep us functioning, alive, and being able to do things like this. So thyroid is very important in that regard.
So it's like super important,
Yeah, yeah.
pretty much from metabolism to reproduction to like
Mhm.
every other things.
Yeah, because it does impact a variety of our organs, like every single one of our organs. And this goes back to the idea of looking at the body as an organ system that all communicates with one another, as opposed to like picking out pieces of like, okay, for your thyroid, go here, for your gut, go here, where it's, all these organs are interacting with one another. It's a really complex network, and you can't, pull them apart from one another and not examine the full impact that they have on each other.
Yeah, we also often like, explain the hormone system as, a symphony. So like an orchestra that has to be
Mhm.
you really coordinated. And then
Yeah.
thyroid is like a huge, like really important part of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And people also talk about, like thyroid issues have like hypo versus hyper. What are the difference?
Yeah. So hypo is the more common one that we see. And so, like its name, hypo means low. So low functioning thyroid. So you have low levels of thyroid hormones that your actual thyroid is secreting. And so what this ends up happening is, imagine what would happen if you had a low metabolic rate. You see symptoms such as, depression occurring, sluggish metabolism. So you might experience weight gain. We have the dry, brittle hair and nails, the dry skin, just like the slowed down system, essentially, is what you can think of. Constipation is a big one too, I see, when there's hypothyroidism. Whereas the opposite of that, hyperthyroid, is high functioning. So think of it as if, your energy is just all the way ramped up. So we see a lot more anxiety with this, racing heart, jittery feeling, losing weight rapidly. So opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. What about the Graves' disease? What makes it a little bit different?
Yeah. So Graves' disease is an autoimmune condition of the thyroid. And so what's happening there, it's the counterpart, or not the counterpart, it's the opposite of Hashimoto's, which is a little bit more prevalent. But in Graves' disease, we have an autoimmune condition that's driving overproduction of thyroid hormones. And then it's also causing a host of other symptoms to occur too. That's generally, more significant than just having a hyperthyroid. And so one of the most important things to do is if you have, the high functioning thyroid picture, if that's a concern, always run the antibody test to rule out Graves' disease because, you know, any and all autoimmune conditions should be taken seriously because that's your immune system attacking itself.
Since you mentioned Hashimoto's, could you talk a little bit about that too? Since it's
Yeah.
like pretty common too.
Yeah, that's pretty prevalent. Most cases of hypothyroidism end up being Hashimoto's, but
Mhm.
oftentimes they get missed because some doctors don't run the full thyroid panel. So they might start with a TSH and then also do free T3 and free T4, and then antibodies might get neglected. Whereas Hashimoto's is a autoimmune condition where the thyroid's attacking itself essentially, and so it's causing a lot of different symptoms in the body beyond just like, hypothyroid symptoms. You see other issues come arise that could come with an autoimmune condition, like the joint pain having prevalence, the other autoimmune conditions occurring. So super important to get comprehensive testing done to see what type of imbalance it is and if it's autoimmune.
Got it. So what are some factors you believe could influence, the development of these conditions?
Yeah. Specifically, looking at the more autoimmune picture, which is more prevalent, you have to really take a step back and think about, okay, what could happen that would cause the immune system to start attacking itself? And so some of the big things that happen are poor gut health. We know that there's a big link between gut health and autoimmune diseases, especially when it comes to Hashimoto's. There's a very, very big link. Gluten plays a big role in this too. So oftentimes a lot of Hashimoto's patients are told to avoid gluten products because, it can fuel the disease. And then looking at other conditions too, like are there stealth infections? Like is there mold, as mold a concern? Is there chronic viral infections? Also looking at other hormonal imbalances that may be occurring. And a big one, of course, is what is our environmental toxin exposure like? We know a lot of these environmental toxins can have an impact on our hormonal system. I mean, there's like a whole class of them called endocrine disrupting chemicals. So they play a role too. So really, again, taking a step back and thinking what can cause the immune system to go into overdrive and start attacking itself.
Yeah, that's exactly what we want people to become more aware is these environmental toxins. So who's at risk for these developing these thyroid conditions?
Yeah, big one is family history, I would say. So if you have a family history of thyroid disease, always really important to get it checked. Like, for example, I have a long history of it on my mom's side of the family. So one of the things I always do is make sure I'm getting my thyroid routinely tested to rule out any conditions. People that are exposed to a lot of environmental toxins, unfortunately, can definitely leave the door open for having autoimmune conditions. People with poor or compromised gut health, that could also contribute to it as well.
Yeah, well, so what are some ways that we can actually like promote thyroid health?
Yeah, definitely. Of course, diet is the big one, making sure you're getting in all those essential nutrients that are so important for our thyroid, like selenium, zinc, vitamin D, iron. So, focusing in on a really rich whole foods diet and less processed foods, so you're getting a lot of nutrients in. And then, of course, supplementing when necessary if it's a multivitamin. I personally like taking beef liver capsules because organ meats are so high in nutrients and they're more bioavailable. So that's like my version of a multivitamin. And then, doing all the things you need to do to try to minimize environmental toxin exposure.
So you just mentioned, whole foods and then like some supplements. It's actually almost exact the same recommendations we give it to our users too, because by consuming whole foods, less packaged food, you're also reducing your toxin level too.
Yeah.
So it's like almost like it's like a win-win. Not only you're improving your thyroid health, but you're also reducing toxin levels, and that work also hand in hand.
Yeah, absolutely. The more you shift towards more whole foods, less processed foods, I really do think that's kind of like the foundation of developing a healthy and thriving body because, food's the number one thing. That's where we get all the building blocks we need for all these processes in our body.
Absolutely. So you also do some like functional lab testing, you said on your website. So could you tell us a little bit about the lab testing you do with for thyroid health?
Yeah, definitely. So comprehensive thyroid testing. So that includes TSH, your thyroid hormones, free T3, free T4. I also like to run a reverse T3 and then antibodies as well. So that gives you like a really clear picture of what the thyroid is doing, like how the brain's signaling to your thyroid, what your thyroid's actually producing, and how your immune system's functioning too in regards to your thyroid. And then specifically in my practice, I work a lot with women who have hormonal imbalances. So of course we do comprehensive hormone testing like the Dutch test. Gut goes hand in hand with all of this. So I do run tons of gut tests in my practice too. So GI maps specifically is what I do. And then, bringing on additional labs as needed depending on someone's, imbalances.
Yeah, that makes sense. This is like super comprehensive. So what's a session with you look like?
Yeah. So first one, always, it's a free discovery call. And I sit down with individuals and we just kind of talk through what their health history is. it's about 30 minutes. We just go through like what they dealt with, what their symptoms are, and then I present to them ways that I can help, which lab tests I feel like are indicated. I used to not run as many labs, but then I noticed, they almost always become necessary. So now I tell people, okay, we really need to get lab testing in because a targeted approach is the best approach.
Mm-hmm.
So usually we have that conversation, and then once, if you want to move forward, we'll book that first appointment. We'll complete all labs prior so that during that first appointment, we really hit the ground running. We review lab work, we put together a plan of action, and then do monthly checkups from there.
This is really cool. Love the monthly checkup. Like sometimes we do consult with our users as well to make sure, because lifestyle change is hard. And it's like, it's a long-term approach rather than just like, one-time thing. Because a lot of people think that they just make changes one time that will miraculously fix their body for life, but that's not really the case. Could you talk a little bit about, how wellness is sort of an ongoing process and how you approach this?
Yeah. So I love that point that you bring up, because I feel like, especially with the amount of information that we have access to online, you could come across someone talking about something, even maybe on my page, and feel like, wow, I need to change everything about my life right now. I'm not doing any of this. like what's wrong with me? Like, this is why my health's poor. And then you get in this mindset of like, okay, I'm going to throw everything away. I'm going to start new tomorrow. And like, that's not, I really think a small percentage of people can be successful like that if you really have that willpower. But like, most of us are going to get burnt out. It's not going to be sustainable. And then you'll be like really good for a week, and then you'll fall off the wagon and just go back to old habits. So taking it one step at a time. And you don't have to do this big overhaul of your life overnight. All you need to do is just be committed to the idea that you're going to improve day by day. So if it looks like tomorrow morning you feel inspired to, okay, I'm going to add an extra glass of water because I don't drink water, that is doing a lot of benefit for your health. And then just building on these small changes. Like if you have a goal of exercising more, you don't have to go and do like 7 HIIT classes in a week and burn yourself out. Just start something, build on it. And like, those are the habits that end up being long lasting and sustainable. And, I shared this on my page recently. Health really is an up and down journey. It's not linear. So, I'm committed to my own health and being healthy and practicing good health measures. But, these last couple of months, I had a really like stressful time in my life personally due to family circumstances. And that made me kind of fall off the wagon with certain things, eating out more, eating a little bit more processed foods, not sleeping well, obviously has an impact on my health, but it was circumstantial and I did the best that I could. But it just goes to show like your health isn't always going to be perfect because life isn't perfect. You just have to be committed enough to get back on the wagon and make those small changes and get back to a good place.
Yeah, perfectly said. It's also exactly what we recommend also, because reducing toxins is also like, a live course approach. It takes a long time, and then you have to keep paying attention and also not like making changes everything at once because it's like so overwhelming. Yeah. So we often tell people, okay, pick one area you want to start. If you want to start with your, personal care product, use better products, do that first, or, clean up your kitchen, using better pots and pans, or using, like better storage containers and getting rid of like plastic wrap or other things. Yeah. No, totally on the same page.
Yeah. And it could be so expensive wanting to just completely change your entire house overnight. It's important to make those small changes over time, but it's not feasible to like wake up and throw everything out and like redo everything. It's just not going to work out.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, this is so cool. So thank you so much for joining us today. And then, be sure everybody who's joining today, be sure to follow Dr. Paria, and then it's doctor spelled out, Dr.Paria on Instagram. And then you can also book a call with her by clicking our LinkedIn bio and tabbing the Instagram post with promoting this Instagram live. So thank you so much. This is so informative. We love it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Talk to you later. Thank you everyone for joining.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.